The first, Mr. Speaker, is that there is more than a whiff of arrogance in this motion. Too many Remain MPs in this place will use any device to try to block Brexit. There are honourable members, Remain members, but I'm afraid there's too many who are not. And the decision was delegated by this place to the people to make their decision, and they made that decision very clearly. Now, we've been kicking this can down the road for 3 years, and to many outside this Westminster bubble, enough is enough. And I would remind the House that the majority of colleagues and members who are going to support the motion tonight voted in favour of triggering Article 50. And what Article 50 said, very simply, is that we would be leaving the EU with or without a deal. Now, we have twice extended that timeline, and that is why people outside this place are getting very frustrated with many colleagues here tonight. But apart from the arrogance, Mr. Speaker, I also think this decision is ill-informed. It will make a bad deal more likely. Anyone who has negotiated in business or with any organisations, if the other side believe you're not prepared to walk away, it will make for a worse deal. It's a simple fact of life. Most of us in this place prefer a good trade deal to no deal. But the guaranteed way of getting a bad deal is to take no deal off the table. And for the business people in this House, and for many who have negotiated deals, they will understand that. But I also believe, Mr. Speaker, it's ill-informed from an economic point of view. No deal has been derided without examining actually a lot of the economic facts. Time does not allow here now for that to be undertaken, and too many people are talking anyway, so they wouldn't hear the points, Mr. Speaker. But what I would suggest is that people reflect on the fact that half of the EU's top 10 trading partners trade on WTO no-deal terms outside the EU, with parties outside the EU. It's a simple fact of life. I will give way.
Mr. Speaker, I do thank the honourable member for giving way, and I do sincerely hope that I'm not seen to be an arrogant member of this House. I always try and represent the interests of the far north of Scotland. Would the honourable member and others in this chamber at least accept the fact that a no-deal Brexit would ruin the crofters and sheep farmers of my constituency, and that would lead to a second hand in clearances?
What I would say in response to that is that if there is a no deal, and most of us in this place want a good trade deal, there would be tens of billions of pounds to help those sectors of the economy and industries and sectors to readjust. That is a fact of life, as we've done in previous economic cycles. And too many people
horizontal, lying back against the armrest. He's straddled, I think, the seat.
Careful.
No, he's covering the length of his body is covering the seat from where his feet are almost at the point where the Prime Minister would stand at the dispatch box, or any minister would stand at the dispatch box, all the way into the corner seat by the stairs that go up through the centre of the government treasury benches.
Where the Chief Whip might normally
Exactly
sit.
where the Chief Whip would sit. And he's lounging right back. And this was during a speech which was being given by Antoinette.
To all the talk in recent years about no deal is better than a bad deal, industry's been fully aware that no deal was a distinct thank you, Mr. Speaker. Industry has been fully aware that no deal has been a distinct possibility over these last few years. What have we seen economically? We have seen record low unemployment. we've seen record manufacturing output. We've seen record investment. This country attracted more inward investment last year than France and Germany put together. It comes down to economic reality, and I'm afraid, Mr. Speaker, in the House, for some members coming to its decision tonight, they have not considered the economic facts.
Mr. Bob Neal. Mr. Speaker. I've been a member of my party for 50 years, and throughout that time I believed in our membership of the European Union. I campaigned for that in the referendum. My constituency represented to remain in the European Union, albeit by the very narrowest of margins. But my side lost. And I accept, therefore, that we need to leave the European Union. And I want to leave with a deal. People in my constituency, businesses, those who work hard to build wealth for this country, are genuinely concerned about the impacts of leaving without a deal. Their concerns are not illegitimate, they are real and they need to be addressed. But equally, they have real and genuine concerns about a prolonged uncertainty too. And I think we as politicians need to weigh heavily the damage perhaps done reputationally to our body politic too. These are not easy matters. We've had a great deal of statements of bold certainty in this debate and too many other things, perhaps, Mr. Speaker. Perhaps too much hyperbole and a little less, not enough pragmatism. My conclusion to try and reconcile that narrow margin in my constituency and those conflicting but genuine concerns of my constituents has been to vote 3 times to leave with a deal. I wish others had done so as well. If I believed that passing this motion today would make it easier for us to achieve a deal, I would support it. But I do not believe that it does. I've come to the conclusion, after real heart-searching, and you will know, Mr. Speaker, I have not been afraid to defy the whip of my party in the past when I thought it right and proper to do so. But after real heart-searching and thought, I have concluded that it would not have that effect that I wish to do, that it might have, regrettably, the contrary effect of reducing the government's leverage in negotiations. Because if we are to get a deal, the only point that we are realistically going to now is at the October Council, 17th, 18th of October. I don't wish to bind the hands of the government in the run-up to that. It may be a narrowing window of opportunity to get a deal, Mr. Speaker. We may not succeed, but for the sake of my constituents and to reflect that narrow margin in my constituency and also in the country and try and find a means of us moving on together, I believe that we should try and seize that opportunity and not do anything which, whatever the motives, and I don't impugn for 1 second the motives or the integrity of those who have proposed this motion. Many of them are amongst my dearest and best friends in this House. But I do believe it would be mistaken to support this motion tonight, and for that reason I will support the government. And I do urge my honourable friends and right honourable friends to think again before we cross a Rubicon. 50 years many of us have worked together, and I hope we could continue to in the future, and I hope that they will just reflect one last time before taking the step of voting against the government tonight.
Chris Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For 3 long years we've talked, we've debated, we have voted repeatedly in this House on Brexit. And yet here we stand still after 3 years not having reached any firm resolution. In supporting the motion before the House this evening, we would simply prolong even further the uncertainty which our country is experiencing, which business is experiencing, which my honourable friend, the member for Bromley and Chislehurst, in his excellent speech a moment ago, has described. We have a responsibility, having been elected in 2017 on manifestos to respect the referendum result, to do so, to stop prevaricating, to stop kicking the can down the road, and one way or another reach a definitive conclusion. The motion before the House tonight does not do that. It simply prevaricates even further. Now, some members opposite have been very clear about what they want, and I respect that. My neighbour, the member for Carshalton and Wallington, and the member for Brighton Pavilion have both been very clear previously and this evening that they would rather remain in the European Union, and they certainly don't want a no-deal exit. That is a view I disagree with, but at least they have clarity in expressing it. They also say they don't want to leave with no deal, but I say if you adopt that view, then you have only two choices, that you either accept any deal that's offered up, no matter how bad, or you remain. And I don't think either of those options are acceptable. Remaining when the country voted to leave and we were elected, the main two parties, on manifestos to leave, I think is wholly unacceptable. So there is only one sensible option, as the member for Bromley and Chislehurst very eloquently pointed out.
Brown. The question is that the question be now put. As many as other opinions say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. Aye. The ayes have it. The question is the motion as on the paper in the name of Sir Oliver Letwin. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. Division! Clear the lobby. Order. The question is the motion in the name of Sir Oliver Letwin as on the order paper. As many as other opinions say aye. Of the contrary, no. Tellers for the ayes. Chris Elmore and Stephen Gethins. Tellers for the noes. Stuart Andrew and Ian Stewart.
right now, because Remain elements within the party, people like Emily Thornberry, who was talking to Ian Dale earlier on this evening, Nick Brown, the chief whip, telling the PLP, like Emily Thornberry, that what they cannot allow to happen is for there to be a general election, and that would allow Boris Johnson to prorogue and then dissolve Parliament, and then MPs wouldn't be sitting in the House of Commons. They wouldn't be able to do anything. They'd be completely powerless because Parliament wouldn't be sitting, because there'd be a general election, and therefore we would find ourselves in on October the 31st, leaving the European Union without a deal. Now, Boris Johnson has said, or his team have said, importantly, that date of a general election is October the 14th. They're now going to move that to October the 15th because there's a Jewish festival, religious festival on the 14th, and voting counts as working. So it's going to move to the 15th. But the danger is between. This is where it gets really complex.
In the weeds.
This is really in the weeds, but it's important. And what Remainers
just
fear,
don't make this sound like work, Theo. But carry on.
In the weeds of this, what Remain elements are fearful of is that if they were to approve under the Fixed Term Parliaments Act a general election to take place, there is a gap between that vote taking place as early as tomorrow and then the dissolution of Parliament, when it would be possible for Boris Johnson to change the date of the general election, to move it to take place after October the 31st, and we end up leaving the European Union without a deal. And that's the battle that's taking place within the Labour Party right now, as to whether it should vote in favour of a general election tomorrow or not.
We're watching pictures of the House of Commons as you're hearing the hubbub of the noise of it. Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, has taken his seat. Once the tellers step forward towards the mace that is placed on its side in the House of Commons. In fact, 2 of them are there now. They require 2 more in order to be stepping forward towards the Speaker's chair and delivering the result. Theo, just once again, for complete clarity, tell us exactly what we're going to be hearing. In fact,
Sergeant, be good enough, please, to investigate the delay in the eye lobby.
Right. So there's a problem.
Just give us the clarity of what we're about to hear.
This is a vote on a motion to take control of the parliamentary agenda. The vote on the legislation, which would force Boris Johnson back to Brussels to get an extension to Article 50 until January the 31st, that will take place in the House of Commons tomorrow if this is successful, and then in the House of Lords on Thursday and Friday. The government will try a filibuster to talk it out so it never reaches the end stage. There's then a question about whether the government will issue royal assent, and then it will become law.
Now, I wonder whether there are going to be more people joining those 2 tellers and whether we are going to be hearing the result in the next few moments. But they require 4. There are only 2 tellers. And there seems to be a result coming. Let's listen.
Order.
The ayes to the right, 328. The noes to the left, 301.
Not a good start, Boris.
Order. The ayes to the right, 328. The noes to the left, 301. So the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Unlock.
MPs have taken back control of the parliamentary timetable as expected, and we can look forward to new legislation being put to the government, Theo.
Extraordinary defeat, a sizeable defeat, a rebel majority.
Theo, let me pause you there. The Prime Minister is responding. Let's have a listen to Boris
The consequences of this vote tonight, it means that Parliament is on the brink of wrecking any deal that we might be able to strike in Brussels, because tomorrow's bill would hand control of the negotiations to the EU, and that would mean more dither, more delay and more confusion. And it would mean that the EU themselves would be able to decide how long to keep this country in the EU. And since I refuse to go along with that plan, we are going to have to make a choice, Mr. Speaker. I don't want an election. The public don't want an election. I don't believe the right honourable gentleman wants an election. But if the House votes for this bill tomorrow, the public will have to choose who goes to Brussels on October the 17th to sort this out and take this country forward. Everybody knows that if the right honourable gentleman is the Prime Minister, he will go to Brussels and beg for an extension. He will accept, you will accept whatever Brussels demands, and we will have years hours more arguments over Brexit. And by contrast, Mr. Speaker, everyone knows that if this government is in charge and if I go to Brussels, I will go for a deal, and I believe I will get a deal. We will leave anyway on October the 31st. The people of this country will have to choose, Mr. Speaker. The Leader of the Opposition has been begging for an election for 2 years. He has crowds of supporters outside calling for an election. I don't want an election, but if MPs vote tomorrow to stop negotiations and to compel another pointless delay to Brexit, potentially for years, then that would be the only way to resolve this. And I can confirm that we are tonight tabling a motion under the Fixed Term Parliament Act.
Mr. Speaker, on a point of order, I welcome tonight's vote. We live in a parliamentary democracy. We do not have a presidency, but a Prime Minister. Prime Ministers govern with the consent of the House of Commons, representing the people in whom the sovereignty rests. There is no consent. There is no consent in this House to leave the European Union without a deal. There is no majority for no deal in the country. As I've said before, if the Prime Minister has the confidence in his Brexit policy, when he has one he can put forward, he should put it before the people in a public vote. And so, he wants to table a motion for a general election. Fine, get the bill through first in order to take no deal off the table.
Order. Point order. Order. Very rude for members. Order. 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 I say to the Chancellor of the Duchy that when he turns up at our children's school as a parent, he's a very well-behaved fellow. He wouldn't dare behave like that in front of Colin Hall, and neither would I. Don't gesticulate, don't rant, spare us the theatrics, behave yourself, be a good boy, young man, be a good boy. Point of order, Mr. Ian Blackford.
Let's just confirm what you've heard, other than John Boko trying to take the limelight for yet another moment. The main news out of that, as well as the loss, Theo, is the fact that Boris Johnson has tonight tabled a motion under the Fixed Term Parliaments Act to call an election, and Jeremy Corbyn isn't going there.
Jeremy Corbyn has sensationally ducked it. He has said that he will only support a general election if legislation is first passed to prevent us leaving the European Union on October the 31st without a deal. Now, from the way I understood the sequencing and this is very, very febrile at the moment, the way I understood the sequencing of Boris Johnson's statement was that he was saying that he would firstly said that if the House of Commons passes the legislation tomorrow, of course it has to go to the House of Lords on Thursday and Friday, then he will table the motion under the Fixed Term Parliaments Act. So what we're going to see tomorrow, from what Boris Johnson has just said there, and it may of course change within the next few minutes or overnight, but from what Boris Johnson has said there is we're going to see the debate from 3 o'clock tomorrow on this piece of legislation, European Union Withdrawal Number 6 bill, which has come from the chairman of the Brexit Select Committee, Hilary Benn, to force Boris Johnson back to Brussels to seek an extension to January the 31st. We will then see, if that is successful, a vote for an election, 2/3 majority required, 434 MPs.
That's not going to happen, is it?
But which what Boris Johnson has said he's prepared to do tomorrow should that legislation go through, and then Jeremy Corbyn sensationally stands up and he says he's not going to back it. Unbelievable, having spent 3 years demanding a general election. But of course, you can understand why Corbyn is taking this stance, given how many of his front
bench. He wasn't yesterday. Yesterday, he was saying.
Well, he said he was saying he was saying he was using his words very choosing his words very carefully. It was all about bring it on, we're ready for an election. What he didn't say explicitly was that he would support this motion under the Fixed Term Parliaments Act. Because, of course, what you have to remember, Tom, is, and your listeners have to remember, is that there is a fundamental split within Jeremy Corbyn's own shadow cabinet, within his own parliamentary party. Many MPs absolutely fearful that Boris Johnson could use an election, change the date of an election from October the 14th, now 15th, to after October the 31st. Parliament isn't sitting, MPs are powerless, there's a political campaign going on, and we leave the European Union under the status quo that currently exists on October the 31st without a deal, and MPs can do nothing about it. And that's why Jeremy Corbyn's own shadow cabinet are absolutely petrified of going to the country before this legislation is passed. Jeremy Corbyn having to go with the majority of his parliamentary party on this one.
Top bins, Theo. Thank you very much indeed. LBC's political editor Theo Usherwood live in the studio with us tonight at the conclusion of that voting. 328 versus 301, a majority of 27 to give control to MPs to bring forward this bill to bind the government's hand. The next question, I suppose, is, well, which of the Conservative MPs voted for it, and therefore which of the Conservative MPs stand to be stripped of their ability to be a Conservative MP? More to come. Your thoughts too. Tom Swarbrick here on LBC. The time, 10:18.
This is LBC. Monday night on ITV, based on a true story.
You heard from her?
No. They can't think of a reason why she'd be out of contact for this long.
A detective must cross the line.
I wasn't playing games, I was pleading for Sian's life. What was I supposed to say?
To reach the truth.
You're breaching every code of practice.
It's my daughter, isn't it? She's the second girl.
We have got to investigate this properly.
New 6-part drama starring Martin Freeman. A Confession continues this Monday night at 9 on ITV and watch on ITV Hub.
You're a licensed private hire vehicle driver and you want to make more money. Yeah, I know the feeling. That's why I drive for Bolt, the new ride-hailing platform in London. I can earn around £200 a day and Bolt drivers only pay 15% commission. Just compare that with some other apps in London. Get started today. Search Drive with Bolt or download the Bolt Driver app. Bolt, the smartest way to drive, if you ask me.
My mum can't remember my first steps. She can't remember walking me to my first day at school, or watching me walk down the aisle. She doesn't even remember I'm her daughter. But I do. That's why I'm walking the Alzheimer's Society Memory Walk for my mum. Join me to help defeat dementia. Sign up at memorywalk.org.uk. Who will you walk for? memorywalk.org.uk.
Grandma will never find her purse here. I know, more mud.
You can't control what your grandchildren get up to. But if you temporarily misplace your Visa debit card, you can freeze and unfreeze it on our mobile banking app. Feel in control every day. Lloyds Bank, by your side. You can only freeze some transaction types, T's and C's apply.
Love each corner, glide over cobbled lanes, sometimes get lost, and even enjoy the traffic. The Renault Clio Play is designed for the city, with 16-inch alloy wheels and air conditioning as standard. Just $169 a month, no deposit, and 0% APR this September. Renault Clio Play, book your test drive today. Renault PCP Finance Clio Play TCE 90 48 months. Optional final payments £4,654. Subject to status. Over 18s. T's and C's apply. Order and register by September 30th. Retail customers at participating dealers only.
I'm sorry, you have progressive memory loss.
When you hear these words, the outlook is bleak, but we're working to change that. We're Recognition Health, the brain and mind experts, and we're running clinical studies in London and Guildford. If you volunteer, you'll receive free access to a new generation medication as well as comprehensive medical care. With your help, we can change the future of MCI, as in mild cognitive impairment and Alzheimer's disease.
You have progressive memory loss, but here's what we can do.
To find out more about Recognition Health and taking part, go to brainandmindexperts.com.
Tom Swarbrick on LBC.
Very good evening to you. 10:21 is the time. Tom Swarbrick with you on LBC, where we're reacting to the news that broke in the last 10 minutes or so that the government has lost in its vote tonight in its bid to keep control of the parliamentary timetable. It has lost by a majority of 27, 328 votes to 301. You're never going to guess what the percentages are in that. Yep. 52-48. 0345 6060 973 for your reaction. James is in Merthyr Tydfil tonight. Hiya, James.
Hiya, Tom.
Thoughts on what's gone on?
Yeah, well done, MPs. You've just done a coup d'etat. I hope you're very happy with yourself. And Jeremy Corbyn, you haven't even got the courage of your convictions, and you won't go to a general election. So what you'll do is remove democracy from the people and won't come to the people for our judgment. I am disgusted that they've got no stomach for this fight, have they? They want to take the power from the government, enforce this on us, and not come to us for our answer.
Couldn't you make the claim that Jeremy Corbyn is doing what is in, he feels, the country's best interests right now, which is to absolutely make certain that they are blocking a no-deal Brexit before entertaining any thought of him inside number 10?
He's doing his European masters bidding because
Jeremy Corbyn, the arch Eurosceptic.
Yes, the hypocrite who did that speech in 2009 in Dublin. The absolute hypocrite. His miracle he doesn't fall over his tongue for the lies that come out of his mouth. And that front bench. You know me, Mr. Keir Starmer. Sorry, Sir Keir Starmer when you're down in London, but call me Keir when you're out of London because you